Jack London, born John Griffith Cheney, was delivered on January 12, 1876, to an unwealthy and uncaring couple. His legal mother was Flora Wellman, a very manipulative woman who attempted suicide during her pregnancy not only once, but twice. His father was William Cheney. William and Flora were unwed when Jack was born, so throughout much of his life, Jack's illegitimacy was often confronted. Jack's mother was a devout racist who believed in racial segregation and unpaid slave labor. She also preached for free love and was very much against all religious organizations. These beliefs were pressed upon Jack, leading him to be indoctrinated into believing such views as well. Jack had no real loving mother. He found affection with an African-American nurse named Jenny Prentice, who stepped up to take the place of the motherly figure during his infancy and early life. Of course, since his birth mother was racially biased, she strongly opposed Jenny. Jack clung tight to Jenny because she was the only source of motherly love he ever received. Jack was placed in an elementary grade school in Oakland, California. He wasn't very outgoing and didn't have many close friends. Jack did, however, become friends with Jenny Prentice's daughter. They spent large amounts of time together and eventually grew inseparable. Due to this, the other children would often ridicule and hurl racial slurs at him. Jack had to drop out of grade school after 8th grade due to his family's low income. When he was 15, he borrowed $300 from a relative and bought his own sailing vessel. He pirated clams and sold them on the black market to earn a living. Ironically, Jack turned his career completely around. When he was 16, he applied to the California Fish Patrol. This job gave him insight and introduced him to the world of law and order. After Jack's glory days as a law enforcer, he joined a crew of seal hunters. They sailed up to the North Pacific, across to Siberia, and down to Japan. During this journey, Jack absorbed as much cultural information as he could. He had a particular interest to study and compare people of other cultures with that of his own. Jack London returned to his home state and applied to the University of California in Berkeley. Without much studying, he passed the entry exam. Although he was doing very well academically, he dropped out after the first semester due to issues involving humiliation, being poorly dressed, and his illegitimate birth. After failing to start a literary career, Jack sold most of his belongings and traveled to the Yukon to join the Gold Rush movement of 1896. Big businesses had already staked out land, so it was quite tough for him to settle in. Jack brought along books to read. Such books were written by Rudyard Kipling, Joseph Conrad, and Karl Marx. Jack had a burning passion to read and learn. This expedition fueled his passion by exposing him to new situations and new environments. Without much luck, Jack was forced to return home due to a lack of success and profit. All he obtained was a bad case of scurvy and a measly $4. Through all these difficult circumstances, London was extremely fascinated by the unforgiving and cruel landscape of the Yukon. These experiences would ultimately influence his style of writing, such as setting and cultural emphasis. During Jack's early life, he selectively obtained whatever literature he could get his hands on. The authors who influenced him the most were Charles Darwin, Karl Marx, and Émile Zola. Jack London absorbed literature upon literature and read to his full extent. He believed in most of the prejudices that the society around him believed. Although through much of his own discernment, Jack still managed to hold on to a few beliefs that had failed him in the past, such as Darwinism. London refuted parts of Darwinism, but would simply use the others in his own writing. One feature of Darwinism that London abandoned is its inherent racism. Even Darwin himself made a book addressing the fact that there are no superior ethnicities, just one single human race with many variations. Charles Darwin, being well known for his own philosophies, wrote much literature about evolution and natural selection. Jack London stood close to these philosophies and even improved them when he could. Jack had a system of choosing which philosophy to put his faith in. He would first study a specific philosophy. Next, he would apply it to his own life, and if it didn't work for him, he would simply throw the belief out the window and move on to the next one. Due to London swapping his philosophical views quite often, it became quite challenging to keep track of what he believed in at any specific time. It is possible to see when he went through these phases with each book he published. This was all a direct result from his eagerness to seek truth. Jack London was an individualist who spent the majority of his life focused on the philosophy of socialism. He integrated theories and themes of socialism into his own writings. These writings usually displayed strong naturalism as well. Jack London was a prime example of a naturalist writer. He wrote about naturalism in some of his most well-accommodated books, such as The Call of the Wild and White Fang. These books also captured a sense of primitivism and displayed early Darwinism. The Call of the Wild is heavily influenced by London's naturalism. It shows primitivism in its true nature by having detailed imagery of violence and barbaric gore. This not only encaptures the reader by adding an extra layer of interest, but it also creates an overlap with his idea of a crude and unforgiving nature. London had the opposite effect in his book White Fang. This book has a violent start and a peaceful conclusion. Although London could see past many of the philosophies and was able to find defects within them, he still used them in ways that benefited his own. Darwinism was not perfect, but he still used the other aspects that he tested with trial and error. Another contributor to London's writings was his devout socialism. He became involved with socialism early, joining the Socialist Labour Party in Oakland in 1896. London incorporated his socialist views into the rise and fall of individuals and society. London turned to socialism due to his lowly life as a boy. He was exploited as a worker at a young age, so naturally, he worked towards redeeming his past by finding truth to his madness. This socialism was based around the writings of Karl Marx and his accompanists. The attractiveness of socialist principles proved to embody the virtues that London was seeking. Near the end of his life, London realized that the basis of socialism was a false screen covering up a lie. He uncovered this lie in a letter addressed directly to the Socialist Party. This was the quote London gave in his March 7, 1916 letter of resignation from the Socialist Party. My final word is that liberty, freedom, and independence are royal things that cannot be presented to nor thrust upon races or classes. If races and classes cannot rise up by their own strength of brain from the rest of the world, then they never can come to these royal possessions. And if such royal things are kindly presented to them by superior individuals, they will not know what to do with them, will fail to make use of them, and will be what they have always been in the past, inferior races and inferior classes. In March, delusioned by socialism, London resigns from the Socialist Party. He returns from Hawaii in July, but suffers attacks of uremia and rheumatism. Jack London would soon after die suddenly and unexpectedly on November 22, 1916. London used his personal life experiences to evolve and shape the content of his books. For example, when his family moved up to the Klondike, he was significantly affected by this change, and soon enough, he was writing books based on his own understanding of the environment around him. Although Jack London eloquently spread his opinions and philosophies in his literature, he still managed to keep his writings uplifting and encouraging to his readers. London's reputation also extended overseas, where he was considered one of America's foremost writers. Although short-lived, Jack spent his time creating what would eventually become some of America's most read classic literature.